Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On Podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another podcast. On today's show, we have Jonathan Lucenay. He's the CEO of Client Command. Jonathan, it's been 18 months since you and I have had a chat about your business and the state of omnichannel marketing. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. Good to be back with you.
You know, it's no surprise for dealers who are listening to today's podcast that anybody in the marketing industry associated with automotive retail has seen some massive changes over the last 9 months through COVID. And that includes dealers cutting back on their spend and still finding some sales success, in some cases even hitting sales records. Jonathan, for dealers who don't understand Client Command's ability to measure active shoppers in the market, I'd like you to give a quick thumbnail. We'll go into the details later, but what your platform does, and then I'd like for you to open your kimono a little bit and share with our listeners what you saw during COVID. And as we now are approaching October, what does the active shopper market look like?
Yeah, sure, Brian. So Client Command at a high level identifies a shopper the minute they start shopping. We call that audience active shoppers, and we engage them with omnichannel marketing on behalf of our dealer clients instantaneously. And then we carry them through the journey all the way to the purchase of a vehicle. It can be pretty advantageous to a dealer to be first, especially if you're selling cars that everybody else has and you're competing. If you can give the consumer what they want, when they want it, before anybody else can, you have a decided advantage. In fact, that shows up in gross profit increases of about 15%. When Client Command is involved in marketing to a customer versus when they're not. I think you asked a second piece of that question around what did we see through COVID? And the real answer to that is when everybody got sent home. Let's go back to March. We had just seen a decrease in shopping intensity and the number of shoppers through the end of February and the beginning of March. That actually, when we went back and laid it over the COVID timeline, it corresponded almost identically with when the news started coming out of China that this may be a once-in-a-century pandemic. Consumers stopped and said, wait a second, I'm not going to make that big purchase. But when everyone got sent home mid-March, so think give or take the week of March 12th, number of shoppers spiked dramatically. And of course it did, because everyone was sitting at home on their device with nothing to do. And rather quickly, we all ran out of Netflix shows, right? That kind of passed on. The number of shoppers then began to decline again to actually reflect who was going to buy, and we developed some algorithms to figure out, okay, which ones of these shoppers are aspirational versus actual shoppers. But at that time, we're talking late March, early April, it didn't matter. The dealerships in many states were closed. Couldn't sell a car unless you were a first responder. However, as dealerships started opening back up, we were able to connect shoppers with dealers with some great efficacy to allow for dealers to sell cars. Then the second, if you will, the second shoe fell on the COVID crisis, and that is the inventory shortage that has existed now for a while in retail automotive. And what we did in that regard, Brian, was a little bit different, is we stepped back and noticed that the number of shoppers that were in the market, while it was dramatically fewer shoppers at the time when this started in mid-June, early July, than had been in the market pre-COVID, it was far more shoppers relative to the number of cars that were available. And so the tables turned, if you will, and dealers had a tremendous amount of power where the consumer has recently had the power. And is that making sense? The
Yes.
dealers had the inventory?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think that some people were scratching their heads. It's like, hey, I cut back my marketing and I'm having all-time record sales. And of course, this was a pent-up demand. Also, for us on the East Coast, these were people who were leaving high rises in New York, coming into the suburbs and needing a car for the first time. I mean, we're talking a massive shift in thinking for, the area where Carrie and I grew up, is that the real estate was flying off the market, meaning in towns where $2 and $3 million homes were stagnating because they had a yard and a pool, and everyone thought, well, this next generation doesn't want yard and maintenance. All of a sudden, yards and pools became the hottest selling item in a home in New Jersey. So we've had pent up demand. We've had a shift in thinking on where people want to live. The suburbs is happening. Inventory shortage makes for a perfect recipe. But now we're approaching October. Do you still see the active shoppers growing? Do you see them to be higher than pre-COVID levels? Are they normalized for this time of year or higher than you would have expected?
So they're definitely not normalized. They're different by city. For instance, New York City, which you were just referencing, is about 40% higher than pre-COVID levels. And if you were to take the overall of the country, that's about the case right now. The number of shoppers is astronomical. What happened when the tables turned for dealers is dealers had the car, consumers had to go find the car and get the car because there just weren't enough cars. As inventory begins to stabilize out, that demand, if you will, is going to change. We're going to have to go find the shopper again and connect very intentionally with them. But we anticipate we're in a crazy election right now. We have some crazy economic factors going, but all things being equal, we anticipate that we're going to see strong sales through the end of the year and the beginning of next year, just based on active shopper demand.
And Jonathan, I think we also have this factor which we haven't talked about, which was the injection of financial stimulus checks, enhanced unemployment benefits. I just know for some restaurant owners that are friends of mine, their wait staff was making more, like $1,000 more a month than they were working, which of course put cash in their pockets. That could have spurred car demand. Now we're thinking that before the election, there may be another stimulus package. I know today in the news, this is the latest conversations that are happening, but also interest rates are super low. Carrie and I are closing on a house in Florida. I'm locking in a jumbo loan at 3%, which is just historically crazy low. So you're absolutely right. As the economy is pumped up, as inventory comes back online, we could have a healthy year, but dealers still are going to need to market. They can't go dark. We know that. And Jonathan, your platform makes sure that the dealers are spending efficiently based on the inventory they have in stock. So let's talk about this. There are some dealers listening are saying, yes, my manufacturer is catching up. I'm going to be better stocked towards the last quarter of 2020, and I'll be back normalized inventory Q1 of 2021. How does Client Command adjust advertising based on the physical inventory that's sitting on the dealer's lot?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, if a customer wants to buy a high-end sports car and you're a Jeep dealer that doesn't sell a high-end sports car, that's not a good pairing. unless you have them in your used car inventory. But if that same consumer wants to buy a truck or sport utility vehicle or recreational sport vehicle, that's a perfect fit. So the first thing we do is we identify the audience. And then we look at your inventory and say, okay, what can you sell? And then we match the customer with you, the dealer, so that when you start a conversation, when the engagement begins, you're already 90% of the way there.
So, Jonathan, when we talk about building audiences and active shopper network, you've been doing this for years. You're not a new company. One of the things that I can't completely understand, and I'm not sure why my brain has a blockage here, is I read on the news that, Apple is turning off certain type of tracking and Google's going to turn off certain type of tracking, and this idea of using pixels or cookies. How are you able to identify active shoppers in a world that seems that traditional channels, from identifying an anonymous shopper to their personal information or where they live or what type of credit level they're at, how are you winning that war? It seems like it's a pretty active war on data sharing.
Not only is it an active war, but the ground is ever changing in that environment. And several years ago, we chose a principle by which we structure all of our data. And that principle is what's best for the consumer. And by following what's best for the consumer, we, as laws have come out, we found ourselves in compliance before the law's even written, in more cases than not. And so we structure what data we share between the anonymous world and the known world very intentionally so that it protects the consumer, but gives the consumer at the same time the information that they want. Also, be sure, as a consumer, be sure that when you go onto a site, you read the privacy policy, you accept the cookies, if there are cookies. And in the case of Apple, you can even, through apps, share data intentionally with companies like Client Command, with data networks. And we use all of that ecosystem to benefit the consumer and ultimately the dealer.
And so when we think of big data being collected, leveraged with the dealer's DMS and CRM, pushing out advertising, which is relevant, I typically call this marketing automation, and we have an amazing face-off, which your company is going to be participating in at the upcoming Automotive Analytics and Attribution Summit, where dealers can see 6 companies present their platform and why they believe it's the best. Part of the reason why we have this fall conference is because the attribution piece, meaning for years, dealers have been told certain companies can use data to create audiences, to present more relevant messages at the right time, to drive engagement and consideration to a specific VIN. How are you helping dealers report on and validate that your advertising messages are actually tied to a physical sale?
Yeah, Brian, great question. Dealers are in a tight spot when it comes to technology companies, in that the relationships are often combative, information is often veiled and not transparent in a way that puts the dealer at a disadvantage. And Client Command has taken the position quite the opposite, that we should tell you up front what consumers we're targeting. We should tell you what engagement they have with the dealership in the past. We should tell you what ads we serve the consumer, what ads they engage in, and then ultimately, if they buy or service from the dealer, we should tell you that. And it should paint a very clear picture of what influence, if any, Client Command had on the purchase of a vehicle. And we're excited that right now that number sits at about 11.8 touches per sale. meaning that we touch a customer 11.8 times before they actually buy a vehicle from one of our clients. And we just think that's the level of transparency everybody should have. You mentioned AAAS. I cannot wait for that face-off. That's going to be fantastic. It's going to be a super informative time. Look forward to the conversations that ensue from that. It's going to be, along with several other things you're doing at AAAS, that's going to be really, really good for dealers.
Yeah, because, what I'm trying to do this year at the conference is to help declutter all the demos, meaning in the marketing automation, 6 companies, they have 10 minutes in video to present how their product works, how it differentiates their company, how it measures attribution. So dealers can literally spend an hour and really see 6 different products and then ask questions. We're doing the face-offs also for digital retailing, for automotive websites, and OTT digital video. So 4 amazing kind of showcases of the best of the best. And obviously, Jonathan, you're on this podcast because I have clients that use your technology. They are loving their results. And one of the pieces that I hope you're going to showcase at the AAA Summit is that your platform is omni-channel and that it's not just a Google Ads strategy. It's not just a Facebook strategy. So for a dealer who hires Client Command, say, look, I'm going to tell you all the active shoppers. I'm going to overlay that data with your DMS. I'm going to show you how many touches our advertising has on people who come in and service or buy a car. What would those touch channels look like? What's the diversity of them? Give me some examples on which marketing channels you're currently using that seem to be effective for dealers.
So you've got phone calls, you've got social. Facebook and Instagram are knocking it out of the park right now. You've got display, you've got email, you've got some dealers still want to send real hard copy mail. And in a journey where when a consumer engages, you double down in the medium they engage in, and when they engage on a message, you double down. It provides the dealer a real-time optimization that they don't get in other places.
So, for example, instead of doing a pre-programmed force everyone who comes to the website, hit them on Facebook, hit them on Google, hit them with a retargeting banner. If you see that this person is re-engaging multiple times on social, are you saying that the algorithm automatically optimizes on that because it seems to be their preferred channel?
Yeah, we'll double down with that consumer on social because the consumer's responding there. To try to get them to respond on a medium which they're showing no movement may not make sense. So yes, we double down.
Jonathan, we never talked about this topic before, so you couldn't even prepare for this question, but it's a question that's going to be coming up a lot at the AAA Summit, and this is digital video and OTT. We now know, right, that there are companies that basically have a trade desk software where somebody can bid to place a video ad in a variety of cord-cutting environments, whether it's a Hulu or a YouTube or whether it's any one of these Tubi or whatever. And it seems like, the cable companies tell us that they have premium content that everyone can't get in. The trade desks tell, well, I can get in on any platform. How are you looking at digital video delivery as part of an omni-channel approach to advertising for your dealers?
So I didn't bring that up with you, but we do share clients, and I think you may know some that are actually in a pilot with us, testing some of these cable companies in terms of what their OTT capabilities are and using the active shopper network to target real shoppers in real time via OTT. We'll see what the results are. Early indications are that they're good, but our future actions as a company will be based, as they always are, on data. If the data delivers a great ROI for a dealer, we're in. And if not, we're going to back away and let them figure it out.
Well, that's why I always love your company's philosophy. Not only, Jonathan, as we've gotten to know each other, you're a man of great character and faith, and want to do the right thing, as you mentioned, for the consumer, also the right thing for your customers. And I love that answer because we're really in the early stages of understanding what's the right messages in an OTT environment, what happens when a lot of that video is happening on mobile devices, the interruption message versus the educational or confirming message, right? I will tell you that it's kind of creepy about it feels like people are listening in your home. Like when Carrie and I started talking about hers interest in getting an X5, and I had submitted a lead from our home here in Florida on a local dealer on her Facebook feed. She never went to any dealer. On her Facebook feed, the BMW ad started showing, right? So it's kind of like, wow, that's really weird. We talked about booking a hotel at the Mandarin Oriental. Same thing. I went on my computer, booked at Mandarin in her Facebook feed. Here's Mandarin Oriental ads. Some of those are creepy. Some of those are perfectly timed. And some of those messages are interruptive and bothersome. And I think the challenge for OTT video is to know which messages uh, play better on a clickable platform versus a non-clickable, like inside a linear television campaign.
Brian, I think that's true. There's also a business model challenge that they're having. And as we've unwound this ball, if you will, with the OTT companies, what we're finding is that their business model is that they need to market to hundreds of thousands or millions of people, millions and millions of impressions. So if you're actually, as a dealer, able to say, no, wait, I know the people I want to talk to. Just give me this handful of people, and I will give them a very specific message. It somewhat breaks their business model, and that their whole model set up for the number of impressions, and it has to be massive. So there's iterations that need to come forward, both in the messaging, making sure it's the right messaging, but also in the business model, so that dealers can actually spend their money most efficiently that way.
Yes, and one of the other things that I heard in regards to OTT is that it's difficult to put a frequency cap on it. Is that true?
So my inside voice is going to answer this question, Brian.
Okay.
Because of their business model, yes, it's very difficult to put a frequency cap on it. And they want to blow in all kinds of people that aren't in the market to the audience just so they can get more impressions. And at the end of the day, that doesn't serve the dealer's best interest. Right now, it's how you have to buy from many of the premium providers. Hopefully it changes in the future.
Well, that's why I like talking with you, and that's why I wanted you to be on our show, because as dealers get to know you, you are a true student of marketing, and the Client Command platform provides dealers with omni-channel, data-driven, inventory-specific marketing, which over the long term can save dealer groups millions of dollars in wasted ad spend. And we can't wait to have you on the Marketing Automation Face-off. For dealers who are unfamiliar with the Automotive Analytics and Attribution Summit, this is a 3-day event, November 16th, 17th, and 18th in November. We are going to be live streaming from the US, Mexico, Italy, and Holland in language in each of the countries, talking about the latest strategies in marketing, measurement, and attribution. The 3 days of English US content is just outstanding, and the best of the speakers, technology companies, and dealer contributors will be participating. The other great thing, unlike a physical conference, is that Well, you can't see all the speakers that are on the agenda. The great news about our virtual conference is that not only can you attend live, but you will be able to go back over the next 30 days and watch any workshop, panel, or keynote that you missed. Now, to make a virtual conference more exciting, we've learned from our conference we ran in the spring, we are adding call-in features. So for all keynotes and main stage panels, including the face-off, Jonathan, that you're in, dealers can call in and people all around the world will hear your questions. And so that's going to make it a lot of fun. We're also going to have gamification for attendees that are really engaged, asking questions and visiting our exhibitor booth. We're going to be giving away amazing vacation packages, so some fun for the people who really want to engage. And of course, we are innovating with the highest quality video content and delivery out of any automotive conference that has been offered in a virtual live stream. This is what we're hearing from dealers. We are a cut above. So, Jonathan, man, you better get your team ready because we're going to have dealers who are coming, looking to shop for a new agency partner, for a new marketing strategy. Are you guys ready to answer the call?
We are fired up about this conference, Brian. And how much are you selling these tickets for?
The tickets are $395 for dealer employees, and they're higher for the vendor community. All of that information is on automotiveattributionsummit.com.
Fantastic. And I'll tell you what, if you guys reach out to us at Client Command and schedule a demo, Brian, if this is okay with you, we will give dealers a free pass to AAAS in conjunction with the demo while supplies last. We'll give out those passes if they'll call us and get a demo. We want them there. We want them to see everything, the latest and greatest. Typically, we find that our best customers are the customers that are the most educated, and nobody's providing education like you are.
Well, Jonathan, that is a wonderful offer. So anyone listening to today's podcast, if you go to clientcommand.com and request a demo and take advantage of this offer to get a $400 ticket to the AAA Summit is absolutely valuable because they will have an amazing educational experience online. And of course, the Client Command software is just amazing in itself. If this is the first time you're listening to a podcast, you should know that every week I interview an industry leader, a market mover, or a technology breakthrough, and we share these podcasts to help the automotive retail community grow. Every week between now and the AAA Summit in November, we'll be releasing an interview with one of our speakers and leaders, and it's so great to have Jonathan on today's show. If you want to listen to this podcast, know that it's on Google Play and the Apple Podcast channel, Spotify, SoundCloud, and on the native channel, brianpash.libsyn, LIBSYN.com. I want to thank everyone who spent time with us today. We're going to have a great time with the Client Command team in November at the AAA Summit, and we hope to see you there.